It starts in a coal mine where the workers are finishing up for the day. While they're in the elevator to get to the main level, one of the workers, a man named Joe Allen, jumps down on top of the lift. When they get to the main level, Joe throws an object at them that explodes and traps the miners inside. Later, Dr. Carl Winters, a pathologist, arrives in town at the request of Sheriff Nate Craven. He greets his friend the sheriff, an old friend of 40 years. Dr. Winters tells Nate that he heard 10 men perished in that coal mine, but the sheriff tells him it was 9 men. And one inhuman son of a bitch. Carl wants to know what he's gonna find. Sheriff tells him this is one of those nightmare specials that you never get to the bottom of. Carl says, tell me what happened, and we go to a flashback of when they found the bodies. He begins by telling Carl about the people that have disappeared. Over 6 people in 1 month. During one of their searches, they finally find a body wrapped in a bag stuffed in a tree. When they unwrapped the sack, they found a decaying body drained of every ounce of blood. The sheriff couldn't make sense of it all. He said, there wasn't one goddamn drop of blood. Nate deputized 2 of the civilians at the search party and had them stay back and watch over the crime scene until he returned. And when he did, he tried to raise them on the radio, but all that was left was a radio and the empty sack that the body was in. He told Carl what he did find out about the body in the woods. It resembled a man named Abel Doherty that was last seen in a bar. At the bar, Abel recognizes his old buddy, Eddie Sykes. But he says he's not Eddie Sykes. My name's Joe Allen, the same Joe Allen that threw the bomb in the mine earlier. He said, you're not Josh Allen. We've been working together for years. We're friends. But the man says, like I said, I'm Joe Allen. Abel wants to know why he's acting like this. Joe says, I'll tell you, but not here. He tells Abel it's a secret and begins to take over his mind. He tells him to knock his drink over so he'll appear drunk and he'll drive him home. Once Abel knocks his drink over, him and Joe leave the bar. The sheriff tells Carl that the man that Abel was calling Eddie Sykes, that 9 months ago he told a buddy of his he was going to watch a meteor shower. He never came back to work, but a week later he showed up in another town calling himself Joe Allen. When they searched his apartment, they found another one of those rocks that he had, and also a card that said he works at the Braddock's Fork mine. Once the sheriff puts the rock in the car, he calls for backup and heads to the mine to confront Joe Allen. At the coal mine, they're looking for Joe, but Joe finds them first. He breaks the window of the police car, takes his rock, and runs to the mine shaft. He jumps onto the lift and rides it to the bottom, and that's where he detonates his bomb. The sheriff said there was no trace of that bomb anywhere, but what he couldn't figure out is how this guy knew that it was in his car. Nate takes Carl to examine the bodies. On the way there, Carl tells him he has stomach cancer, 6 months to live. They arrive at the Pennsylvania Ice and Refrigeration Company that they're using as a makeshift morgue where they're storing the bodies. Nate wants to know if Carl's okay working here by himself tonight. Carl tells him to go home and get some rest. He'll talk to him in the morning. He starts a voice recording to leave for Nate. He says that his official report will be in writing. Carl begins examining the bodies one by one to find the exact cause of death. In the recording, he tells Nate that he doesn't think it was a bomb that neutralized these people. On his way to get the next body for examination, his hair literally stands up on his neck. He looks at his reflection and it tells him to run. Confused, he says, run from what? He examines the next 2 bodies and sees that they're both drained of blood. On the recording, he tells Nate that he thinks it all might be in Joe Allen's stomach. He decides to examine Joe Allen next. He goes back to retrieve Joe's body. As he approaches the body, it gets up. Joe seems to be alive. Joe crawls into the examination room and asks Carl for help. Says he's trapped in this body, in his flesh. Carl asks Joe, what are you? He says he's a traveler, but not of Earth. He said he fears death. The doctor also asks him what was the spear. He says it was his ship, and it needs to be destroyed as their first order of business so that they won't be discovered. Joe tells Carl, I can smell your cancer, doctor. He says, let me rid you of it, and tentacles from his face grab the doctor. When the doctor wakes up, he's tied to the table. His body is paralyzed except for one arm. He told him he left one arm able to move because he needed a final sensory motor standard for a perfect fit from his brain to Carl's. He tells Carl he's the perfect host, being a pathologist. He said the meals will be brought right to him, still warm. He said their alien bodies are streamlined, they travel light. They have no need for senses like sight, smell, touch, and hearing. He says he has no use for those things because they'll be in the host body. Carl tells Joe, you have no senses of your own. He says you're nothing but a thief and a parasite. You're nothing but cancer with a big mouth. The alien also tells Carl how sadistic he is, whereas he leaves parts of his host body's brain functioning so he can whisper into his brain exactly what it's doing and he can feel everything. Carl says you're forgetting something. Your arrogance makes you stupid. He tells the doctor, don't worry, in a few minutes I'll know every thought in your head. The being uses Joe's arm one last time to make an incision on Carl where the alien can enter. Carl knows that the alien is blind and deaf once he's outside of its host body. He can't reach the alien to neutralize it, so he nicks his neck and uses it to write something on his chest. As the alien gets closer to taking over his body, he decides to blind and deafen himself, and he makes one more cut to drain the alien's food supply. The alien is finally connected to Carl's brain and asks him, "What have you done? Where am I?" Carl says, "We're communicating through my brain, right? Well, I want to let you know that this is your home now, but only for a few minutes, because all your food is leaking out, and you won't be able to see or hear." The alien tells Carl, "Well, I can still make you move, and we'll make a feast out of your sheriff friend." But he tells the alien it'll only be a few more seconds before all your food is leaked out onto the floor. Carl says to the alien, "Don't you want to know what you forgot?" He said the tape recorder was still rolling and will make for interesting listening for when my friend gets here. The alien screams to let him out as Carl's lifeless body falls to the floor. The sheriff reaches the examination room and finds his friend on the floor with something written on his chest. The sheriff plays the recording.
I'm leaving this recording for you alone, Nate.